Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another one of our AppSheet Office Hours. My name is Lauren, and I'm the content manager on the Google Cloud community team. Joining us today, we have several members from the AppSheet team who will be taking us through our agenda today. So as you can see, we'll be covering recent platform enhancements, including AppSheet databases and no-code chat apps, as well as a demonstration of new app templates. We'll also have time to answer your questions live, so please feel free to add those into the YouTube chat box, and we'll be sure to get to them either through the chat or live at the end of the presentation. And we love seeing where all of you are joining us from. I see we have Melbourne and India. So yeah, please let us know where you're joining us from. We love to hear that. So for any questions that we're not able to answer today, rest assured we'll be publishing a recap post, including the recording and written answers to your questions. So you can find the link to the community, which is where that recap post will be posted in the YouTube description, along with a few other additional resources related to the topic today. Okay, so with that said, I'll hand it over to you, Shirley, and we can get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. So for me, I'm calling in from New York today. Hello, everyone. I'm going to be talking about AppSheet databases. For those of you who have seen my community posts, you'll have lots of information already, but I'm hoping to share more of stuff that you may have not seen in the community yet. So just some key points about this new feature that we're launching. In the crux of it, is AppSheet's first-party native data source. So previously, you'd be able to connect other data sources like Sheets and Cloud SQL databases, and I'll talk about where this sits in that spectrum. But there are three key things I wanted to highlight with AppSheet databases. The first is that it is an easy one-click provisioning for a structured, no-code data modeling interface. So what that means is it's super easy to set up. And over the course of the next year or so, we'll be making more improvements to improve the usability and also improve its integration within AppSheet. That brings me to my second point. The main purpose of creating this native data source is to simplify the app creation process. So that includes setting up your data to make sure that it works well in an app, making changes to the schema once you already have that data, and a lot more other stuff. The third point I wanted to highlight, I know there's been a lot of questions around usage in the community. The AppSheet database feature right now is in public preview, and that's available to everyone. Once we GA, the feature will continue to be available for all plans, including the free starter and core plans. What might change, or what we're discussing changing, is the usage limits available at each plan. So you can imagine that for a free trial, it'll be more limited. And then as you work your way through to an enterprise plan, you'll have more usage. And we'll be announcing those usage limits at GA shortly. Awesome. So I talked about the spectrum of data sources that we offer at AppSheet. The main goal of this AppSheet database is to allow our users, our no-code, non-technical, maybe line of business users, succeed in app creating in the AppSheet platform. So right now, where AppSheet database sits, it's kind of in the middle. You have your sheets on one end, which is more unstructured. It is harder to scale and error prone for app creating. Of course, it's great for other use cases. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have a cloud database, which is more technical, takes a little longer to set up, and more for management. And we really wanted to bridge that gap between these two types of data sources with AppSheet database. Next slide, please. Awesome. So another very common question that we get is, how does this compare with Sheets, which we know is a very common data source today? There's three main pillars I wanted to just quickly go through. The first is the data modeling and setup part. So this is what I mentioned before on having a structured column type and column types that match what AppSheet supports to reduce data entries and to provide flexibility when you change your schema. The second part, AppSheet integration. This is an area where you'll see a lot of improvements coming up. For now, we allow column types that are compatible. We allow users to easily build dropdowns within the data model and clearly reference other columns inside different tables within that database. And we're also adding user improvements to the AppSheet editor. And I know there's also been feedback on this in the community, which we really appreciate, to see which areas might need more improvements or what is confusing to our users today. In terms of performance, we are more performant for high concurrency editing within the database, and then also for automation and security filter use cases. So that's what we found from our testing currently, but we are continuously making performance updates through GA and beyond that as well. Next slide, please. Awesome. So a lot of folks have also been asking what's to come. The first thing that we want to prioritize is performance improvements. So that includes making data changes appear faster and connections between apps and updates to apps faster as well. We want to definitely allow people to import from Sheets. That's a very common feature request. It's coming in the next couple of weeks. We're starting testing for that feature internally soon. So you'll be able to import your data from a sheet into a database. And then as well, you'll notice if you've tried to share a database, there aren't any email notifications right now. So we're also working on that and enabling that very soon. And then, of course, we'll still be taking into account any changes based on issues or feedback that folks here have reported. All right, so I'm going to step into a live demo, but before that, I just want to walk through what my demo will look like. And in the lens of maybe a program manager or someone who owns a process but is not a super technical. So if you don't mind going to the next slide first. Awesome. So let's say that I'm a program manager and I want to track my team's project status and OKRs for the next coming year. How will AppSheet help me do that? Or what kind of solution does this look like within the AppSheet platform? There are kind of three main steps, and I'll switch over to the editor to show more in detail of what this looks like. Basically, the first step is creating and setting up that database. So with an AppSheet database, setting up all the columns that I need and importing the data either from Sheets or entering or pasting it from some other source or leaving it blank so that my team can fill it in later. Then the second step would be connecting to an app. And with that, we also get really great features like automation, which I'm sure folks have been already used to, and slices and security filters. And then finally, I'll share the app with my team instead of exposing the entire database. Cool. So Lauren, if you don't mind, I can run through my demo now. Awesome. So for those folks who have already signed up and logged into AppSheet, this is the homepage where you probably land in. You'll see there are two pivots now, one for apps and one for databases. So these are all my apps I've already created, and then switching over, these are some of the databases I've already created as well. If you want to create a new one, you have a couple of choices. You can just straight create a database, or now with creating an app, you can also create a blank app, which will create a blank database to go with it. Now, today I'm going to look at one of the databases I already have, the project demo one. So here in the persona of mindset of a program manager, I've already set up my database with 3 different tabs or 3 different tables. The first one I have here lists all my projects on my team with a couple different column types. So here, this is a column type of enum and of dropdown. You can see here, I can configure all my dropdown options here and color code them as well. And then we have a couple other column types that are brought in from the AppSheet side. Over to the next table here, I have an OKR summary. So let's say I have a list of OKRs that my team needs to follow, and they also reference projects that are already listed in my projects table. So here I can see that this OKR is related to these 2 projects and the score. Okay, great. So I have my data modeled and I'm pretty happy with it. But now I want to add automation to it. I want to be able to share this data with my teammate. But let's say for leadership, I only want them to see an OKR summary. I don't want them, or they don't need to actually see all the different projects. That's where connecting it to the rest of the AppSheet platform helps enable us to do that. So here within the app panel, I see that I've already connected it to one of the apps called our projects app. And you can build and connect multiple apps to multiple databases. For now, when you click on the new AppSheet button, it only adds the current table that is in the view, and then you'll have the option to add other tables as well. So clicking on that Edit App button will then land into the app editor. So within this app editor, I've already created some views. You'll see here inside the preview, and I've already created some different kind of dashboards for all of our different projects. So here, this is still everything same as what exists inside the editor today. You can continue your app building. Here, I've created my automation so that when a record is updated, I can send an email notification to my team. And then within data, this is where you'll see some changes when your app is connected to a database. So here, these are the different tables as was in my database. Clicking on the table, I see this edit button. So with an AppSheet database, you do all of your edits within the database itself. And then here in the column section, you'll see that there are different column types. And here it's giving a warning that the column projects might contain sensitive data. So now let's say I want to go back to the OKR summary table, and I want to add a new column for priority, which I forgot to add earlier. So I'm going to add that there for priority, and then I'm going to switch back to the AppSheet editor, and then I now get this prompt saying my table is out of sync, and then I need to regenerate the table structure. So this allows me to update my app and pull in the latest architecture from the data source. So here you can see priority is now included in the app itself. And then finally, I can then open this app in full screen as well if I want to make editing easier using the great new desktop UI in preview. And then I can choose to share this with my teammates. I can set up security filters so that maybe only the dashboard view or only the OKR summary view appears for them, so they know exactly what data they're looking at, what information is relevant to them, and then make edits as they would normally. Cool. So that's the high-level overview I wanted to give for AppSheet Database, how it relates to app building, and how users can regenerate schema and make changes through both the database and the app editor. I'll hand it over to Rachel now to share some exciting news around chat apps.
All right, thanks, Charlie. Super exciting stuff with databases. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel. I'm a product manager on the AppSheet side. As everyone mentioned, as Lauren and Charlie mentioned, talking about chat apps. So if we can go to the next slide here. Before I dive into also a live demo of what chat apps are and how they work and sort of where we are with the release timeline, let's call it, of what chat apps is going to be, I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this in the first place, what chat apps are and why we are giving them to you folks as a capability. So we have heard these challenges you see on the screen sort of from across AppSheet customers as well as Workspace customers as a whole. So people have a really hard time setting up processes and then distributing those processes to their organization, meaning that's sort of a fancy way of saying it's hard to build a flow that makes people's lives easier and then get people to actually use that thing, get people to actually use the process that you spent time setting up. And that results in A, wasted time for you, B, continually slower processes for everyone else, and C, just general not good collaboration, because it's hard for people to do their work in either this separate environment that was set up for them, or it just doesn't work for their use cases. So customer challenges, it's hard to set up and engage with these processes. Next slide here, if you can go to yep, here we have it. Not only is it hard to set up these processes and hard to get people to use them, the ways we currently have for building these types of workflows that would exist in the context of where someone is doing their work, whether it be they're spending their time in Gmail and you need something that meets them in Gmail, or they're spending their time in chat and you need something that meets them in chat or elsewhere, are not the most low code of solutions. Certainly you have AppSheet, and we encourage folks to use AppSheet and to use mobile apps and to use desktop apps. But if people are not in that environment, again, your options are not exactly the most low code friendly situation here. They are things like building custom apps script solutions, cloud pub sub solutions, cloud function solutions, creating your own web services. These are how folks are currently able to create these sort of in-context processes, specifically in the context of chat. So if you wanted to create a chat app today, that is how you would go about doing it. We can go to the next slide. That is why we are excited to introduce the concept of AppSheet chat apps, which allow users to build without code, again, using AppSheet's no-code app builder, these types of in-context solutions, specifically in-context workflow solutions or processes or even automations that can exist powered by AppSheet within the environment of chat. So we're introducing these no-code chat apps. It's a collaboration between AppSheet, between Workspace Marketplace, between chat teams, and it allows AppSheet creators to create an app and ultimately publish it to chat with a single click so that your users can interact with your AppSheet apps solely from chat, from a chat dialogue or from chat cards, or even just send automations that trigger those actions within chat. Again, solely powered by AppSheet from this no-code perspective. So if you can go to the next slide as well, actually a GIF. I was going to say a couple of screenshots, but even better, a GIF of what this actually looks like to interact with a chat app, an AppSheet-powered chat app on chat. So while that's looping through, I'll try to talk through these bullet points quickly because I know that the looping GIF can get a little bit irritating, but a couple of points about what this capability is able to provide both now and into the future as we go through our various release stages. So the first thing is a chat app in its most basic form allows you to share an AppSheet view on chat. So you can share a couple of most popular views right now, but then more views down the road as we build functionality into this capability into chat as a chat dialogue, chat card, so on and so forth. And you can also interact with or trigger those views to appear with / commands. You can send these views or this app to a one-on-one conversation, to a space, to a group conversation. So kind of all the places you would expect to be able to interact with this app in chat. One of the other big things we're excited about with chat apps is it allows you to surface some really interesting and useful automation capabilities to your chat users. So certainly, yes, the / command is kind of an automation in and of itself, and that you're typing a / and then something happens. But the ones we're really excited about and are coming soon are those that you think about when you think about an AppSheet app. So listening to a change in a third-party database and sending an appropriate view or an email or a response or a form submission or anything you can imagine as a result of that change. One of the examples we've been thinking about with this product in particular and we're building towards is being able to do that with something like Salesforce. So imagine, for example, you have a new Salesforce record come in and you want to send a notification to a chat space that a new deal has closed or a new deal needs to be assigned to a rep. This capability allows you to do that. And then last but not least, something we're very excited about with chat apps, it's included with AppSheet plans, AppSheet core plans, as well as for Workspace users. So those are things to look forward to here once chat apps is a generally available feature. So where are we right now? When can you get chat apps? So right now we are in a private preview state, sort of a closed group of folks who are hammering on the feature and making sure it works exactly the way we want it to and that it'll create the best possible experience for everyone. That's where we are right now. Coming soon, though, coming early 2023, we are going to open this capability up to public preview. So we'll post in the community, we'll make sure everyone who wants to get access to chat apps is available to do so. And then we are targeting a full GA of this capability, all the features I mentioned, particularly the ability to publish chat apps from a single click, which is not the case right now. I'll show you that in just a second. That full GA capability is coming sort of first half of next year. So next slide, please. Let's see it. All right, if we can switch over to the live demo here, you should be seeing, great, there's my screen. So I'm actually going to create a chat app from a template. One of the great things about a chat app is you can turn an existing app into a chat app. You can turn a brand new app. You start from scratch into a chat app. You can use a template. You can use a database, as Shirley just showed us. But I'm going to use a template because I think it gets us to where we want to get fairly quickly. So I'm going to use a simple inventory template, and I'm just going to use some of the presets here. You'll see my app is getting set up. And I do have chat open with one of our illustrious chat app developers here, Nico. So you'll see we can interact with this in chat in just a second. We'll get the full screen view for now. So while this is spinning, what we will see is once the chat app, or once the app loads rather, there is a section in the app builder called chat. And it is within there that I will go ahead and configure my chat app. So I will be able to enable it. And then we will go through a publishing flow. Right now, the publishing flow is manual. A couple of notes on that. So here's what I was just referring to, the chat section. So we're going to head over to this. A couple of notes on what manual means for just a second here. In order for a chat app to exist outside of AppSheet and in a way that we can interact with it in chat and that it can be in all of the spaces you need it to be within your Google Chat instance, it does need to be hosted from a Google Cloud Platform project, so a GCP project. That is sort of the container that it runs within. Right now, we are requiring users to go through sort of a manual setup flow to configure that. We help you, don't worry, we'll go through the wizard that we've built for you on the screen here. But once this feature is more widely available, either in public preview rather, and especially once we get into the GA state, you will not need to do the manual configuration steps that you will see here today. But I'm going to go through them just so we can sort of see the end-to-end flow. Okay. So that being said, we have our app that has been created from a template. I've navigated over to chat. I'm going to click this enable chat app toggle here. And then you see my wizard, my setup wizard has been activated. So this is what I mean when I say a wizard. It's going to walk me through the different steps that I need to complete in order to take my AppSheet app from the world of AppSheet and get it working completely and functionally within the world of chat. So I'm actually just going to follow the steps that I see on the screen here, and you'll see a little bit of back and forth as I follow my prompts. So the first thing is I need to create my cloud project. Oh, I've reached my limit. That's very exciting. I didn't even know I could do that. So what I would need to do is create my cloud project and set it up, configure my chat app, and it would allow me to interact with it moving forward. So because I have reached my limit, and I did not know that was a capability that would possibly happen in this instance or at all, I'm actually going to swap off of my live demo, and there is a video, Lauren. If you can go back to the slides and click on that video icon, I think it's 2 slides down. Always be prepared, folks, for the inevitabilities of live demos. Yep. So keep going down. Forward, not backward. Other way. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Next one. That one. All right. So if you can actually play this video, if that's possible, this will show you exactly what I was going to show you, actually probably
Chat
in a more
apps allow you to interact with your app directly from Google Chat. In this case, we will open a deck view, take a look at details. We can go back. You can use the / command menu to open app views like a form view, add details, and then submit a form directly from chat. Let's take a look at how AppSheet powers this. Let's start with the welcome message. In your AppSheet app, you have a primary menu that gives access to different views. This menu is translated and sent in the first message with your Google Chat app or in other messages when you reply to it. This contains your different views that you can open up by tapping. Here, I'll open up a form view and you can see the form view, which you can fill out and submit to add to your app without leaving Google Chat. You can also open detail and deck views. Those open in dialogues. Let's take a closer look. In AppSheet, a deck view will be translated to Google Chat and it will open up in the chat dialog. Any changes that you make to the AppSheet app deck view will be reflected in the Google Chat app view. Lastly, you're able to interact with your app through / commands. In Google Chat, you can type /. This opens up / commands for your chat app. These / commands can be mapped to any of the views in your AppSheet app. To use the / commands, you can type it out completely, or you can also tap the menu and this will open up. we're able to open up the form view here where you can submit and add data to your app without ever leaving Google Chat.
All right. Thank you, Lauren, for assisting with the quick recovery there of my live demo gone awry. So as you can all see in that video, which was probably, again, much more streamlined than I would have talked through, chat apps do allow quite a bit of functionality directly from chat, and you can do everything, if not more, than you can do within the AppSheet app now or in the future within chat. So that being said, as far as what's supported right now in private preview and will be supported in public preview, we do have support for most AppSheet views, if not, although not all of them. And we have support for most column types, although not all of them. Some of those are limitations on the AppSheet side. Some of them are limitations on the chat side. But we are working towards full feature coverage there. So that being said, if you go back one slide, I just wanted to give a quick note for folks that may or may not be using sort of chat functionality or chat app functionality as it currently exists within AppSheet. Because if you do have a bit of familiarity with setting up webhooks or AppScript, you are able to put this type of functionality out into the world right now. And I just want to be clear about how what we're releasing with chat apps differs. So very specifically with what's available right now, which is a combination of a webhook and an AppScript to get an AppSheet view into chat. In order to do that, if you have done that, you probably need to write not just pseudocode, but some actual real code, which is great. And, if that is a capability within your feature set as a human, thumbs up for you, but it's certainly not the no-code experience that we want to provide on a large scale. So using webhooks and AppScript, requires writing code to integrate with AppSheet. You have to build your own views and messages and trigger them accordingly. You need these manual steps and handling for every sort of request that comes in, so on and so forth, versus, again, to be really clear, with no-code chat apps, which you just saw the demo of, this is a true no-code experience. It is using the visual editor to construct automations or to construct views and interact with those directly from chat. So with that being said, I'm going to pause there, or end there, I should say, from in the world of chat apps, and hand it over to app templates.
And I think that's me. Thank you so much, Rachel. And thank you to the demo gods for putting us some sort of a weird enforcement of GCP credits right at the demo moment. But I'm very excited about chat apps, by the way. And I think it, in a way, is a good segue into talking about templates and how you can access some of the content we've created recently to support patterns that chat apps may fit, and also databases might fit as well. So if I can have a couple of minutes to promote, actually, before starting, my name is Santiago. I'm a product manager with the AppSheet team. Forgot to introduce myself. Let's talk a little bit about templates. And I'm going to assume that most of you already know that we have a gallery of templates available in appsheet.com/templates. And you visited it. Actually, Rachel showed one of the templates page earlier today. So knowing that familiarity, what I wanted to promote today is that we're increasing the number of templates that we're adding into that gallery. But in particular, we're adding a specific type of templates that are more ready to use and more complex in nature. And the whole idea with those templates is to showcase the potential of AppSheet applications. Sometimes we have some more basic workflows that run in AppSheet applications, and sometimes we have very robust and complex applications that run as well. So we want to introduce those templates into our template gallery so you can play with them, extract pieces that you really like, and kind of find patterns that you think are going to be useful for your own applications, or use the application directly out of the box and configure it on your end. We want to make sure that with those templates, you also have a clarity of the integration examples that we have. So the one that I'm going to show you a little bit in a couple of minutes is about integrating with Google Classroom as a way to really expand the capabilities of your application. Now, these templates are very rich. That means that they're not made for everybody to use out of the box. You have to have a little bit more knowledge of AppSheet to be able to properly modify those templates itself. But if you are able to configure, you really will be able to have nice interactivity of that application and then introduce new features for those applications. We really want to know how you use those templates and what patterns you want to see on AppSheet for more complex applications as well. Can we move to the next slide, please? So we're launching this set of templates. And for the people who are active in the AppSheet community, you've heard about some of them already because we're making posts every time we launch one of those templates. We have retail task management, onboarding and training, incident reporting, 5S audit and checklists, which is for the people that work in manufacturing and do inspections. That's actually a very common pattern that we see. Shift management, workstation bookings, and shift and task management. So you'll see those templates popping up over time, and we're going to improve those templates as we get feedback back from you as well. The whole idea, again, is for you to see a more complex application live. And I think at this point, we're going to show you a little bit of how that looks like, right? So I'm going to switch to my screen. And if my screen is visible right now, you should be able to see the template. Because I'm in a single screen situation, I would need somebody like Lauren or somebody to confirm that my screen is being shown.
Looking good.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So you're all familiar with the app template gallery. You can find different patterns of applications here. One thing that I want to call out is that more than half of successful app creators have copied templates. Most of the time, they copy the templates as educational tools to understand how certain patterns of AppSheet applications are applied. So we recognize that the template gallery is a very good source of educational content for AppSheet, and we also want to reinforce that, not only with educational content, but also with applications that are made to be used right out of the box. So you can type some of the applications that we shared, for example, the onboarding application, and you will find it available as one of the templates that you can consume. I'll show you how that landing page looks like. At that point, you can copy the application and use it on your own. This is an example of an onboarding and training application. I'll show you how it looks under the hood in a moment, so you realize like the level of complexity we've achieved and like very interesting user journeys that have been applied into this application in a moment. But you can now go to the gallery and copy it yourself. Okay. One thing that I want to point everybody in this call to look at is if you go to the menu for that application and go into the About page, you will find a more information link. And that more information link will either take you to a landing page that is a community post that has more details about that particular template. In this case, you'll see it for onboarding and training. So you'll find information and more details about the functionality, but it will also contain a link to an additional tutorial document that you'll be able to use to implement or really go deeper into how that application is being created. So what we're hoping to do is to really add lots of resources so you can be successful using this type of applications for your own apps or using them right out of the box. Now, let me show you at the end this one example of how these applications look under the hood, so you get an idea of how the applications are set up. I won't go deep because it's fairly extensive, but we are actually making videos that will go deeper. So if you go to the AppSheet channel in YouTube, you will find videos that show how these applications are being created and the components of those applications. In this case, this is the onboarding and training application. What I want to show you very briefly is that, yes, it has a significant number of tables. It has a significant number also of automations. I'm going to make it a full screen situation here. You'll see that we have multiple automations here that start to leverage the features and functionalities we've discussed before. So some of these templates will include databases. Some of these templates will include things like app script integration, chat apps integration. So the different solutions that we're introducing into AppSheet are going to be introduced here. And one example is app script integration. So you'll see that some of our workflows that as you copying them are going to be disabled. And that's because they have integration with Google Classroom that will require you to do some extra steps. I'll just click on it so you get an idea what that looks like. This is the workflow that creates a course in Google Classroom through an integration with AppScript. If you go into the details of a particular step, you will see that the automation calls a script. But then to be able to do it on your own account, you will have to authorize the AppScript project to be run directly from your AppSheet account. So there are some steps that you'll need to perform to be able to run some of these more advanced features and capabilities of the application. We really encourage you to take a look at the applications, look at these more complex patterns and more interesting kind of like full-fledged applications as well. We would love to get your feedback. That's why we're posting in the community. So please, we've already received very good feedback from you. We want to get more feedback as we move forward with more applications to share. With that, I think I'm going to go back, and I believe we're passing back to the Q&A section. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yay.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for your presentation. So yeah, now we're going to open it up for Q&A. We see we've gotten a lot of questions already coming through the chat, and we have gotten some through the community as well. So we will start there, but we will get to your questions in the chat as well. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start with this one. Does partitioning work for a table from an AppSheet database or other cloud database?
Yeah, so I can take this one. I also have Dan on the call, who's the engineering lead for the database feature. So, of course, Dan and I can trade off and jump in for any of these database-related questions. Awesome. Hi, Dan. So this is a great question. It's actually a very interesting feature request. Partitioning is not supported right now, but you did touch on a very interesting topic of transitioning or facilitating a transition. So what you could do now is build new tables for your app inside the database. And then with an app, you can connect to multiple different data sources. So if you have an existing app that's already connected to Sheets, you can then also connect it to a database as well and pull in the tables that are relevant from the database as you slowly transition. And as we release the Sheets import feature, then you can slowly migrate your app from the Sheets data source into a database.
Awesome. All right. Can a single AppSheet table be partitioned across a spreadsheet data source and an AppSheet database or other database source? Could this be a technique to facilitate gradual transition of an app to AppSheet database, such as existing users' data remains in spreadsheet while new users' data begins in AppSheet database?
Yeah, so I think this ties in, or perhaps it was a continuation of the first question. So I would just remind users, you can create an app with multiple data sources to help facilitate that kind of mixture as you transition your sheets into a database.
Love it. We're doing rapid fire Q&A here. Can you please address the following regarding AppSheet databases? The general availability timeline, plan features and constraints that differ by subscription plan, and a performance comparison to spreadsheet data sources and other database data sources.
Yeah, for sure. So I can touch on the first few points, and of course, Dan, if there's anything you want to add, feel free to jump in. So general availability, we're targeting early next year. Right now, we've gone, actually today is the 1 month anniversary of our public preview. So it's totally flown by, but we've received lots of feedback. We're trying to get as much done as possible that we can before we GA. So lots of improvements coming. So we're aiming for early next year for GA. And then in terms of plans, features, and constraints that differ, so none of the features you see will be constrained by subscription plan. The only thing that will be constrained is the allocation or the size of a table or number of tables within a database that you can create. So right now, the limits we're thinking about is very similar to the limit measurements that we've announced. So it'll be on a rows per table basis, and then a limit on the number of tables per database that you'll have. For performance, I touched a little bit about this in the beginning of my presentation. Dan, is there anything else you wanted to add along the performance piece?
Yeah, sure. I think the main keys for performance is a tighter integration with the security filters. So if you have security filters, they will work faster with AppSheet database than it does with Sheets, for example. Other things is there is a tighter integration for changes that happen on the AppSheet database UI and the app. The app gets a notification and syncs, gets the data in a delay of seconds. So less cases of stale data there. And I think the other thing that is not there, but we are implementing it, it will be there probably in the near future, is for automation. If you make changes in the AppSheet database UI, it will automatically trigger the automation. So if somebody's previously was editing sheets, that would not trigger automations. Here, if you are editing stuff in the kind of sheet view of the AppSheet database, it will trigger the automations. I think those are kind of the main performance enhancements that we're adding if we're comparing it to Sheets or other providers.
Makes sense. Okay, will no-code chat apps use this feature? And that link is showing to this information below.
Yeah, that's the one. So the link as well as the copy here, the copy to copy here is from an announcement that was made at Next around this capability that Workspace is now allowing the I believe it was described as no-code chat apps to be built, and that is exactly what we showed. So I'm not sure if the copy and then the next announcement post was not entirely clear that it would be AppSheet powered, and it is AppSheet chat apps that we're being referred to, but that is the one, and we're really excited about it.
Awesome. Okay, will the database become a single point of truth that updates throughout all the apps that you use that table in? So if you specify this is a enum column with these values, that is required, rather than manually having to update or create every time you use the same table in multiple apps. If yes, then would every app auto-regenerate when a change to the column structure is made? Or again, would you manually have to regenerate every app that uses that table?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think you saw a little bit of that in my demo. Data changes itself. If you're manually updating a field or a row, those changes will automatically propagate to the apps connected to it. Data schemas or column changes, column schema changes do not automatically propagate. That's why you saw me hit the regenerate structure button once I added a new column. And this is something that we're discussing in our roadmap, and we're trying to do some additional user studies to see what the expected behavior is, because we don't want all apps that you might not expect or know be connected to a table be updated, as that could cause some unwanted or unpredicted consequences. So we're doing some more user research and trying to understand both the technical and user requirements for this.
Great, thank you. Is there any way, tutorials or links, or is it possible to make the Salesforce as the database of the AppSheet?
For this question, I guess it's not specific to databases, but it says that, I guess, I heard the word databases and I really wanted to jump in. I believe a Salesforce connection is possible through a connector platform. You won't be able to, like, let's say, directly make it a data source, but through the connector platform, you can pull in data from there.
There's also just to raise my hand here, there's a step to also add a bit of a data source for Salesforce. You need to install an authorization in your Salesforce instance to allow AppSheet to be connecting to your Salesforce instance too. So we have some of that documentation available in help.appsheet.com, so you can have that there.
Yeah, and once you do that, then Salesforce is the backing of your app, and you can use it in the same way as you would use a sheet for the data that Salesforce exposes to AppSheet.
Great. I think just a few more that have come in from the community, and then we'll make sure to get to the chat. So how can we import data from another database? I think this may be referring to how can we import data to the AppSheet database from another database?
So for Sheets import, that's coming really, really soon. There are some other workarounds too. I saw folks commenting into the chat. So one of them is when you copy an app that already exists, you can change the provider, the source that it copies to. So there you can change it to an AppSheet database. Within the editor as well, if you open up that specific table, there's also a button within the editor that says copy to new source, and then you can choose a different data source to copy that data into.
You could also export from like a SQL database into like a CSV or whatever, and then bring that in, and then when the import feature comes available, you'll be able to do that kind of stuff, even if it goes through Sheets. So
Great. Can we create a dashboard in AppSheet database by pulling data in existing Google Sheets?
Yeah, very interesting use case there. So you cannot create a dashboard like you would in Sheets with charts and graphs. That's what connecting to the AppSheet app editor helps with. You can build charts and different views there. Also, we do have a Looker Studio connection through AppSheet as well. So if you connect your database to an app and then go to Looker Studio, you can then find that data source within your Looker Studio account and then be able to build charts. And I think there was a community post about this as well, but we can try to link that into the recap post.
Awesome. Yeah, and just on that, I'm seeing one that came in through the chat where it's saying, from a BI perspective, will I be able to create more advanced visualizations within Looker Data Studio? So is that what you're referring to, Shirley?
Yeah, it would be, I guess, Data Studio rebranded to Looker Studio, I believe. So it would be connecting it via an app and then going to Looker Studio there to pull in that information from AppSheet.
Got it. Okay. Our organization has been utilizing Google Tables. Will Google provide ways for us to port to AppSheet easily? How long will we have before Google Tables are completely subsumed by AppSheet, or will there be a Google Workspace component of tables within Docs and Sheets? And I believe there's been a few other questions around tables in the chat as well. So any context around this would be helpful.
Yeah, so this is a great question. So we know a lot of different teams internally and externally are using Tables Beta. We call it Tables Beta from Area 120 extensively for their business needs. One thing I do want to call out is that AppSheet database, although a lot of the experiences look very similar, is not a direct replacement for Tables Beta or Google Tables. Instead, we believe AppSheet as a whole, so the entire no-code platform, will help Tables Beta users automate and build workflow solutions that are very similar to what they've accomplished with Tables Beta. So the reason I mention that is because there is feature gaps, or we're not at feature parity with Google Tables, and it's unlikely that we will be over time, but we think using AppSheet automation, building AppSheet apps, and the AppSheet connector platform will help you solve a lot of the similar use cases that you've been using with Google Tables. And the target audience for both products are very similar: non-technical line of business users, program managers, people who are not familiar with coding and still want to automate or digitize their processes, and finding a way to do that. For the how long will we have before Tables is subsumed or deprecated? We are not planning to deprecate Google Tables in 2023. We are thinking and brainstorming different ways how we can easily migrate users from Google Tables to perhaps AppSheet databases or other solutions as well that may cover their use cases. So that's coming soon. And we'll definitely be updating the community with any plans or news we have to share around that.
Great. Okay, so next, is it planned to allow references across AppSheet databases? The current table limit per database requires me to create more than one AppSheet database to develop my business logic.
Yeah, that's great to hear that you're trying out the feature. Right now, referencing through different databases is not possible. That's a great feature request that we can consider. The main workaround I would suggest is also through an app, connecting multiple databases to one app, and then setting the references there inside the editor. So you'd still be able to access all of the information that's across different databases through the app. And then there you can set your references. You can still change the column types within the editor.
Great, thank you. One question here is, any chance of getting CSS control over the UI? And we believe in context to the UI, it's the AppSheet UI as a whole in that experience, if we have any color to add here.
Yeah, super interesting ask. If others want to chime in as well, I don't believe this is prioritized right now, just because the majority of our audience is more on the non-technical side. Yeah, Santiago, was there something you wanted to add?
So let me hedge as much as I can in the sense that there's always a chance of something, but we're really not planning for it right now. It's not in our scope, at least in the short to medium, even longer term. So it's not really in our roadmap. But we've heard from many customers that they would like to get a little bit more power in editing the front end of applications. If you allow me 20 seconds to get on a soapbox, we recommend not pursuing that path in particular when you have business users creating applications, because then the complexity of the application goes beyond the process and the automation, and it starts looking at the front end. So think about like multiple screen sizes, all these different pieces that you don't want to manage, and you don't need to manage with AppSheet because it's responsive. If you start modifying the CSS, it will make a very complex process to create an application. So never say never, but at the same time, it's really not in our current plans.
Great, really appreciate that. And that is all that we have received from the community. So before getting into the chat, we just wanted to share a quick overview of resources. If you do get a chance, we'd love to hear your feedback on this session and ideas for future office hours. So you can use that feedback form, which is that third link right there. Check out the Help Center documentation on that second link. And then, of course, we'd love for you to join the AppSheet community where you can continue to ask questions, hear about our office hours, and essentially just engage with our AppSheet team and other users. So with that, we will also move on. So I will stop sharing my screen and we will start tackling these questions, folks. All right. Some of them seem to be a little bit redundant, so we'll try to consolidate those. It looks like this was already somewhat addressed, but maybe we can add additional color on. Can you comment on when you would use an AppSheet database versus a Google Tables? Or AppSheet versus Google Tables? They look like they have similar functions.
Yeah, so one of the very common feature requests we see from Google Tables users is the ability to limit data based on who signed in, or to only show specific data to specific people. And with AppSheet and building an app using security filters, that's exactly what you're able to do. So I would recommend exploring AppSheet for those use cases. Also, AppSheet in general, or AppSheet database in general, will be moving through from public preview to GA, whereas Tables is likely to just stay in the beta launch phase. So that's also something to consider. AppSheet also has abundance of governance capabilities that are included in the platform. So that's also something to keep in mind.
Great. I want to be able to run scripts from actions in AppSheet. Is that possible, or will it be possible at some point?
You can already connect app script. Basically, through automations, you can call the script, and that could be an app script, if that's what you're referring to. There isn't necessarily like a scripting engine inside of AppSheet, so to speak. But essentially, our integration is what we're providing for kind of like our low-code workspace app script developers.
Great. Can we copy a database so that if we have multiple apps using the same columns, it would make them easier to copy?
Yes. So I didn't show this within my demo, but within the database itself, in the settings gear in the top right, you can open that up and then hit copy database to copy everything inside that database. I also saw there's some questions around transferring ownership. So in that same menu there, you can also change ownership. That cannot be undo or kind of reversed. So be sure that you're definitely confident the new person you want to transfer to is the person that you want to be the owner of that database for.
Got it. Okay, so one around, I think this is regarding chat apps. Can I connect with a WhatsApp API?
Yeah, great question. So chat apps are exclusively a function of AppSheet and Google Chat. That is the platform that we are focusing on here. Again, to use Santiago's phrasing, we will never say never, but right now we are focused exclusively on integrations with Google Chat.
One little plug though, just remember that in our automation functionality, AppSheet applications can shoot webhooks so they can call other APIs. So there may be an opportunity there. We don't know enough, or I don't know enough about the WhatsApp API. If we can do something and it can actually listen to us. And AppSheet applications also have a REST API that you can enable. That means that you can have an external service knock on the door of the AppSheet application and trigger some action. So it's not in the context of chat apps, but there's something that you could do, not knowing enough about your use case, like something you may want to explore.
Yeah, we're also enhancing what we can do with webhooks so that we can actually process data coming back. So stay tuned.
Great. I think this may be a quick answer following up on that one is, can we connect this chat apps to our current chats made in Dialogflow?
So if you have created chat apps elsewhere in the Google ecosystem, again, using some of those methods that we looked at in the slide a few minutes ago, those are sort of separate and apart from your AppSheet chat apps. AppSheet powered chat apps would be entirely unique standalone chat app experiences that certainly you could probably configure to maybe respond to or interact with your other chat apps through, if you want to get into a higher code flow. But from what's capable within AppSheet, know that it is a self-contained experience. That said, as far as whether or not we will have Dialogflow integration in the future, it is certainly a thing that we are interested in and considering. And, we feel that there is strong and exciting opportunities there. We are in early days for what chat apps are and will become, so more to come.
Makes sense. Okay, so apologies if this is redundant, but AppSheet Databases looks like the Area 120 Google Tables product. How are they related, and what will happen to standalone Google Tables?
Yeah, I'll refer to some of the responses I've provided before, but on the matter of the question of how are they related, so from a technical standpoint, they're not related. There's been some questions on, can we use the Tables API to do things in AppSheet Database? You cannot, because they are completely separate products, and the AppSheet Database project was completely rebuilt, separate from how Google Tables was built in Area 120. So from a technical standpoint, they're very unrelated. The interface you see is very similar because we found that people who are using Tables beta, like the non-technical folks or people who are process owners, are very familiar with editing and organizing their data in a structured grid-like format. So that's why we've also chosen to adopt that. But that's basically, I think, the short end of it for the both technical side and the interface side of things.
Sounds good. Here's one, I think, around chat apps. Will you support white label Windows and Mac apps?
Yeah, so great question. I think that the answer is sort of the same as the one I gave around WhatsApp in particular. For right now, we're focused exclusively on the Workspace chat environment.
Can I quick interjection on that one? I don't know if you also meant like publishing AppSheet applications as a white labeled Mac app or a Windows app. Like the wrapper is kind of its standalone thing, which you can do for AppSheet in Android and iOS. The short answer is no, it's not in our plans. Like the surface to expose AppSheet applications in Windows and Mac is the browser. So we expect you to be using Chrome, Safari. I was going to say Internet Explorer, but that got deprecated a long time ago. But you know what I mean, like the Microsoft browser. Yeah, Edge. There you go, Microsoft Edge.
Great. Okay, I think we have time just a few more, but as a reminder, we'll make sure to comb through all of your questions and know that we are reviewing them, and we'll be answering as many, if not all, as possible in the community afterwards. So thank you for your questions, and just know that although we may not be able to get to all of them today, we will do our best to address them over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so does AppSheet Database have the 1 million cell limits as well?
So for AppSheet Database, the limits are measured differently. We're measuring our limits by rows in a table. And right now, I think there's another question on what the limit is for public preview as well. We'll be sure to link my post in the community for that. Right now, we're limiting at, I believe, 10,000 rows per table, 20 tables per database, and just 20 databases in general. And those limits were set for, those limits were set for public preview just so we can get an idea of what the usage is like, and so we can better prepare ourselves and make the performance improvements and scalability and reliability for GA. So for the GA limits, we're still determining what those are. Unfortunately, I can't disclose any specific numbers at this time.
Sounds good. All right, we are at the hour, so we do want to be respectful of everyone's time. But again, we have all of your questions here. And I just want to say thank you so much to everyone on the AppSheet team for joining us and answering these questions and providing this information. We will be in touch with you in the community. So again, if you are not currently a member or following us there, you can see that link in the YouTube description, along with a few other resources on databases and our chat apps. So thank you. We'll see you in the community. Any final thoughts from the team before we close out?
Thank you all for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.